thanks so much for joining us today as we dive into our second podcast on the Post Frame channel. So today we've got two PMs who are project managers at FBI buildings that will really do a deep dive into some things that customers can learn from as you guys really get to see the behind the scenes approach of post frame construction in some ways. So we want to pull out your guys' expertise to help educate our customers to kind of maybe avoid some landmines throughout the process. So first off, if you guys don't mind, introduce yourself. Just kind of what does the PM role at FBI look like, and how long have you been here?
My name is Tyler Musk. I've been with FBI since 2012. Been in the project management role since 2019. And really the role is just working direct with customers. We are essentially the hub for all internal and external parties.
Yeah, for sure. What are you telling?
Yep, my name is Tony Deno, project manager. Started with FBI back in '95.
It's been a little bit. Yeah. That's fair to say.
And then started in the PM role back in 13. So yeah, and been doing it for a while now. So
for 8 years now, or 9 years now, in 2022 already, how would you describe the project manager role?
It's very challenging. We do a lot we're what we call the hub. Mm-hmm. Everything kind of flows through us. We deal with the PM not the PMs, the salesmen, customers, crews, scheduling of all the loads and everything that make it out to the job, getting material on the job, and getting our equipment out. Dealing with our truss plant, getting all the materials. It's very challenging, and you stay pretty busy.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So just to give a little backstory for everyone listening, so the PSCs, or we call project sales consultants, really are the front end, right? They sell the project, and then once that gets sold and comes in house, you guys are the main point of contact, the main person who's going to be working with the customers, scheduling the crews, kind of going through all the details. Is that fair to say and kind of work that way?
Yep.
Yeah.
So with that said, you guys see the struggles and you see the successes throughout a whole construction process. So give us an example, or what are some struggles that people consistently seem to run into during a post frame project?
I think part of the struggles is just really understanding the project in depth and recognizing that everything makes sense and is exactly as you have envisioned. I know getting down the road, you wish this 12-foot wide door was 14 feet wide. You're looking at a frame now, and it just gets costly down the road. So I think part of recognizing that is just catching it early, being overly thorough with your project manager, sales consultant, anyone, and just really understanding your project and your needs.
So you're saying, like, maybe even you design a building a certain way, and then once you see it come to life, it maybe not be how you expected. So, like, what do you do in that situation then, from what you've seen? What's the best way to go about it, I guess?
Yeah, so at that point, you need to determine, for instance, recently I had a project where we put up the garage, and they realized the overhead doors, man, we're trying to get a pontoon boat in here down the road, and it's not going to be wide enough. And so at that point, you halt progress, and you got to pull that post out of the ground, you make it wider, and it just gets costly at that point, where if some of this was thought through earlier in the process, it could have been caught and eliminated and saved a ton of costs there.
Mm-hmm. So maybe don't make assumptions, right? Right?
Yeah, plan ahead. They're never big enough, right? So always plan ahead.
Maybe go bigger than you always think on door openings at least.
Yeah.
How about you, Tony? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I would encourage to ask a lot of questions up front, because it's so much cheaper and easier for everybody involved if you can get things out front before you get the contract even signed. If you can get things lined up and everything exactly how you want it, because changes they're hard on everybody, and the later in the game that you are making changes, the worse it is for everybody involved. Just getting material on site, especially nowadays with COVID and whatnot, things are longer lead time than we've ever seen, and so the sooner you can catch anything the better. So the more questions you ask up front, and it just saves a lot of grief.
Yeah. So with change orders, you guys have mentioned they can be expensive and they can be costly. What might be another negative effect of a change order resulted by not asking questions or not being thorough through the building process besides just the cost?
Well, it can even just the finished product. I mean, if you gotta go back and redo things, I mean, you gotta cut things out or whatever. It's a lot better if you can get it right the first time.
Mm-hmm.
It'll save everybody a lot of pain.
Yeah. And one of the big things too, from you guys mentioned, is just from a delay, right? It can
Sure,
really
time.
delay your project.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You got to pull off maybe for a week or two for the materials to arrive, especially during COVID, and then the customer might not expect that. Hey, one window change or a door change is going to delay my project by, I don't know, a month or something like that, and that can be
That's right.
kind of a disconnect somewhere.
Yeah, you want to add a window? Oh well, those are now about 12 to 16 week lead time.
Mm-hmm.
They can delay things.
And that seems unheard of, right? For a customer, for myself, building a building, like, wait, why is that 16 weeks? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
But that's
Yeah.
the world we live in, right?
Yeah.
A window that used to take a week to 2 weeks is
Mm-hmm.
now up to 12 to 16 weeks.
Yeah. Well, anything else on those 2 points you guys want to add to that?
I think we pretty well covered it. Just be overly thorough and don't be afraid to dive deep with your project manager.
Yeah. So once the building comes in and it's in your guys' hands or even from the salesman's hands, what's one of the most important things, minus I'm going to take communication off the board to make you guys go a little more detailed here. What's the most important thing you've seen that helps a seamless building process from the start to finish? Besides importance of communication and what that looks like, any examples of things you guys have seen that, like, hey, this happens and it always seems to really help that building process be more seamless? Well, you guys, either one wants to go first on that.
I think site preparation is probably a big one. Just having everything staged and adequate site prep, and that way we're not your site's not holding water and we're burying machines and tearing up your property and even flagging off parts of the property that you don't want us driving on. Really just to protect from additional costs there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when we talk about that, people might not envision like, oh, you're just coming to build a 30 by 40 maybe suburban shed in my backyard, right? You're gonna drop off some trusses, guys are gonna come in, they're gonna build it. But talk about what's some equipment, what might that look like in regards to going in someone's backyard, and what can the results of that be?
Yeah, we're still gonna have semis with all our material, and we use our semis to dig in holes and hang trusses and everything there. So we need gravel or dry, good, solid working conditions to get back there, as well as other projects where we may have a skid steer, telehandler, you name it, and we don't want to do any more additional damage, and let's face it, that's not how we set up the project to mobilize and wreck the building, and I'd say another big point is, if you have septic or anything else out there that we need to really add caution to, that's pretty critical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some things might change from what they told their sales rep versus by the time we get on site.
That's right.
Just not to put all the pressure on the customer in that sense, but we don't know until we get there, right? So
yeah, exactly.
There can be a miscommunication that can result in important things being damaged or hurt if we're not aware.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So before we jump to you, Tony, one more thing on that. So a lot of customers might be like, oh, you want gravel for your building because it helps the builder and it helps you guys, but I don't really see the value for me as the customer to pay the money to get a gravel pad down. So what would you say to that? If they're like, I know you want a gravel pad because it helps you guys, but like, what? I'm not putting gravel in there afterwards, so why should I do that type of thing? What would your response be to that?
Well, let's face it, if if we're out there getting machinery buried and stuck, that's going to be additional cost to them, right? They need to provide us with the adequate working conditions, and let's face it, if we're out there fighting the mud, getting buried left and right, not only is that going to be added cost, but that's going to delay the project schedule as well.
For sure. And damaged yard or other things too, right?
Yeah,
That could be
absolutely.
problematic. Awesome. All right, Tony, how about you? What's something you've seen that's really helped the process be seamless?
I guess I'm probably right there with Tyler as far as just getting the site prep done right to begin with, because one of the other things that it causes, if you want a clean building, right, when we're finished, it's tough to put up a building and keep it clean if you're working in a big mud hole.
Yeah.
I mean, you get your gloves, your hands, everything covered in mud. Everything you touch ends up with mud on it, and I mean, it's huge for just having a good clean building when we're done, and even the ruts and everything. I mean, you're gonna have to deal with those ruts later if you didn't do the site prep to begin with correctly. We'll tear it up and it'll be a mess. And if you can avoid that, and then a lot of it, the other thing that is pretty big too is just understanding the order of things that need to happen as far as subcontractors and things, like when you have an interior, what you need to have done, where we're going to be at when you're going to bring your concrete in, when your interior, and just understanding the flow of that too. But I'd say we're back to asking a lot of questions. The more you understand, the better things will go for you. And just there is no such thing as a dumb question.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's a great point on the question things. The customer might think, well, I asked a lot of questions to the sales rep, and we worked through the design and we worked through the flow, and now it's all good to go. Everything's good, right? Like, and they're going to come build it exactly like we talked to the sales rep, and they might not think to maybe call or talk to their PM through those questions. Have you guys seen that, or can that be a disconnect where it's like, well, I talked to my sales rep about this, but they never brought it up or mentioned it to you, and maybe they got lost through that process? Is that something that you see sometimes, and maybe is there a way to resolve that, or just more intentional?
Yeah, I think that does tend to happen, where they do ask a lot of questions of the salesman, and maybe they think they have them all handled and everything. I guess I can't think of any specific examples, but there is, like I said, there is no such thing as a dumb question. Just the more questions you ask, the more you know, it'll help along the way.
Yeah, and how many times do you guys typically talk to a customer during a building process? I know it can vary widely.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say. It could vary greatly, because some people, like if we've got the room in our schedule and we've got somebody that's very motivated and they have their site ready to go and their permitting in hand and all that, I mean, it can just be a couple of times to then you got people that are planning way out, and we're not, by the time we get the contract, we're not actually going to build for 6 months, 8 months, something like that, and you can have a lot of conversations in between there, just kind of progress along the way, just checking in from time to time.
Yeah, for sure. You would add to that, Tyler?
No, I think Tony pretty well nailed it there. It varies, and never be afraid to call, text, email. Really.
Yeah, you guys, all forms of communication, right?
That's right.
And have you guys ever, like, you're not going to get irritated by someone calling or texting or asking a question. That only helps the process, correct?
That's right.
So one more bonus question before we close up, and I didn't tell you guys this beforehand, but I want to throw this out there. So, and you mentioned it earlier, and so you might kind of hit on the same thing, but in the COVID world of construction that we've all been living in for the past 2 years, what is one of the biggest changes that you've seen during the building process due to COVID, with just reality where we're living right now?
Yeah, it's lead times. I mean, the lead times are crazy. It's things that used to be 1 to 2 week lead time are now anywhere from 12, 16, and it's and about the time you plan ahead and you start ordering stuff early, then there's something new that that comes about that you weren't expecting, that last week we could get without any problem, and then all of a sudden you can't get any more for the lead time just all of a sudden changed on you.
Yeah,
it's just tough to prepare for that.
Which makes it even more important, right, to be upfront and communicative to avoid those change orders, because it just mounts the delay of the process, right?
Yeah.
Anything you want to add, Tyler, that's different from that? I know that's the big one, but is there anything else you can think of?
Yeah, that's the big one. We just live in a volatile market and industry, right? And so lead times are a real issue. Windows, walk doors, extrusions for sliding doors, even shutters, cupola parts, you name it. It's real, and hopefully we can get back to a normal, stabilized market at some point here. But yeah.
Yeah. One thing I've seen that people might not actually think about, but the crews are real people, right?
Sure.
Like, I know you said we can forget that, the customers can forget that, and you're like, hey, they just come to my building, but they can get sick, right? And then they've got a quarantine, and that can disrupt the timing, the flow of the crew. Is that something you guys have seen at all?
Yes. Right now, customers are pretty understanding.
Yeah.
Majority of them, there's some of them that have, it's a big deal to hit their schedule, and I understand that too. But for the most part, we've been hit pretty hard after the holidays of COVID. People who are sick out, and it's really slowed down things.
Yeah.
It's tough to keep the schedule, but
You want to keep the guys safe, right?
Right.
And
That's
they're almost a family in some ways.
Sure.
They ride together, they're around together,
Yep.
so that you can have a lot of easy spreading going on if you're not like intentional.
That's right. You nailed it. These guys are riding to and from the job every day in the truck together, 5 deep, 6 deep in the truck, right? And so they're in close quarters, and just this week we had a couple positive tests on a crew, and our whole crew shut down. So it's real.
Yeah, it's obviously not something that we want, right, to have happen. It's gonna be inconvenience to the customer, but it's the reality we live in right now. So hopefully we can see some advancements on this. It'd be fantastic. Well, thanks so much, guys. I appreciate you coming on and sharing kind of your experiences and what you see. And the biggest thing I would just reiterate to anyone watching is you guys are advocates for the customer, right? You're the ones talking to the customer, to the distributors, to the providing the stuff, to scheduling things. Like, you're an advocate for the customer. I think sometimes people might not realize that or think about that or view you guys in that way, but you're kind of their voice in the company to help their project come to life. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So to your point, communicate, text, call, email. Make sure you guys know how you can help them throughout their building process. So, well, thanks so much, everyone, for watching. I hope this helps kind of navigate through your building process if you're early in the process, or if you've already signed a contract and you're waiting. Just make sure you're communicating, make sure you're being intentional, and hopefully your project can go seamlessly and get the project you're looking for. So if you have any more questions, you can feel free to subscribe below or check out any more videos on our YouTube or Facebook page. And then always remember to build with confidence. Have a great day.